Welcome to the PowerBlog site. It is June 14th, 2012. This evening we bring you an update about the situation in South Bend, Indiana, the high radiation readings that occurred midnight June 6th into early morning June 7th, lasting probably a 5-hour stretch. Now, we covered the signature of this radiation event in detail in our last video, and how that the pattern shown on the Geiger counter is basically a fingerprint of a Geiger counter that experienced a radiation field higher than for which it was designed. And so this is basically, until proven otherwise, de facto value of what happened. You know, there's not much that I can explain this, and you won't find a better case. So this is the case to disprove at the moment. So when we did some calculations, because people ask, well, what does this mean? How much radiation was the external exposure? Truth of the matter is we don't really know, because you can't know without knowing exactly what the radioactive materials were. And the Geiger counter couldn't read all of it because it was beyond its capability. So all we can do is extrapolate. So the values we came up with are abstract values, but they're still useful in at least trying to contemplate what has occurred here. And if we take the readings from as displayed by the Geiger counter, and this is a reasonably good representation of it, it's basically the area underneath this 5-hour curve is the amount of radioactivity that was experienced, and that comes into 6.7 milligrams, which is about, a chest X-ray is approximately 10 milligrams or so. What the Geiger counter was showing over this time period was about 2/3 of a chest X-ray. Now, if we come over here to the other side, this is what we believe is the best estimate of what the radioactivity was that this Geiger counter was experiencing, and it's based on a Weibull distribution fit of the endpoints here of the Geiger counter. And so what we have here, when we take the area underneath this curve, is 21.5 milligrams, which is the external equivalent of milligrams you would get from getting 2 chest X-rays. You can't quite relate them because of the time difference involved in getting them, but still, it's a value people can wrap their head around. So what does this mean? An exposure here of 21.5 milligrams, an abstract exposure again, because we don't know what the actual material was. Best guess is it was probably some sort of radioactive noble gas or a radioactive iodine. If people had done swipes around the house afterwards, we might know. And again, this is an external exposure. There's a difference between getting a chest X-ray and inhaling the chest X-ray machine. You know, one sticks with you. But again, if we remember this 21.5 milligrams, we'll see what the DOE says about this, the Department of Energy. Here we have the Department of Energy Oak Ridge website, and we've highlighted what their limit is. We believe this is an annual limit. And it says the DOE has established a 100 milligram dose limit to members of the public from exposure pathways from the result of its operations. So we assume this is a yearly value. So in 1 year, the DOE is going to try to make sure you don't get more than 100 milligrams. You know, that basically works out to, you know, less than 10 milligrams a month. Well, if you go here to the calculations again, there was 21 milligrams in over a 5-hour period. But they don't really track the time periods the way they should. So what this means is that the DOE, and we have no idea if this was related to the DOE in any way, but if this was related to the Department of Energy, they'd be able to do this 4 more times without really worrying about it. And now, the key thing here is some people still poo-poo this detection because they say, oh, there was a ground fault interrupt failure. Well, we believe the ground fault interrupt failure was caused by the high radioactive field. Ground fault interrupt device basically works on detecting electrons, and beta radiation is high in electrons. So this, in fact, is the theory to disprove. This should be the de facto assumption of what happened at this location. Now, we don't know what it was, and we don't know how it came in, But there was been a good bit of analysis here done on another blog site, and we have not asked permission to use this, so we're not going to go into their analysis in detail, but we're going to point you at them. And this is Bobby One's blog, and the address is optimalprediction.com /WP/. And so the key thing we take away from this are these wind charts that he put up. And this is not wind in north, south, east, or west. These are up and down winds. So if we look at the up and down winds for June 6th, this orange area is a downward wind. So if you see, it's right here by South Bend. So there was a downward wind coming out of the jet stream on June 6th. Now if we go to June 7th, you can see it actually starts to get stronger, so it was accelerating. So this was a calm, windless night from the four cardinal directions, northeast, south, west, when the detection occurred, and the detection actually stopped occurring once the wind picked up out of the west. But during this calm period, there was a downward wind from the jet stream. Now, if you also look over here on June 6th, you'll see a bright red area of a much stronger downward wind over the San Francisco area. And we wonder if this effect was not responsible for the high plutonium readings that the EPA picked up back when Fukushima first started. Not sure if this is a regular event over San Francisco, but this would explain why San Francisco got hit harder than other parts of California, even though California is a relatively dry state. So that is the state of affairs. And right now, there are people who will deny that this was a real event. The Geiger counter chart here speaks to the opposite of that. But what eventually will happen is, if this was a near leak, if it was a leak from somewhere around wherever this happened in South Bend, and we don't know that, the truth may eventually come out. And when it does come out, the story will be, it's nothing to worry about. It was only 2 chest x-rays. Well, if they extrapolate the numbers to what they really were, if they use the Geiger counter, they'll say, it was only 2/3 of a chest x-ray. What are you worrying about? Now, if the result of this was actually from Fukushima, then you'll never hear it. And can you imagine if people realized that they could get in a 5-hour period on an evening while they were sleeping, the equivalent of 2 chest x-rays from something that is still going on and will go on for the next several decades over 6,000 miles away? Nobody will ever admit that this was from Fukushima. Never ever. Just won't happen, because it'll freak too many people out. Wish we knew what to do about it. Best you can do is risk mitigate. Make wise decisions and pray. Good evening.